Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks for making your way here for checking out the series. Of course, you know what to do. If you like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out new interviews just like this one every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. And I'm so excited to have one of the greatest back on the show, Michael McDonald, here with a brand new album with the Doobie Brothers called Walk This Road. Hello.
Hey Kyle, how are you?
I'm well. It's good to hear from you and see you again here. Um, and especially because with the Doobie Brothers again, I remember we talked. It was probably like 5 years ago. It was around pandemic or pre-pandemic, and you were doing the Christmas touring and all that stuff. And we were talking about you reuniting with the Doobies for the big anniversary. And here we are now, a handful of years later, and you've
Oh,
got an album with them, which, by the way, let me compliment you, is such a great album.
oh, you're nice to say that. Thank you. That was a real unexpected pleasure being able to do the record with the guys again, um and write songs and sing with them and do the tracks together. It was something I don't know that I when we started off doing this, it was just going to be a 50th anniversary tour, and that would have been it. And here we are, 4 or 5 years later, still working. But and no one's more surprised by that than us, but it was a great pleasure. John Shanks was a great mediator, producer, and he really helped us bring this thing to life. And talking with him recently, we even talked about possibly doing another one as the band together, and maybe revisiting the way we used to do it a little more. By being on the floor together and recording the tracks live in a studio the way we used to do, and maybe even inviting some of the guys from the past to join us, but I think that would be a real fun experiment for us at this point in our lives. I think in some ways we'd bring something more to it, and in some ways we might be have to face the ugly truth about the fact that we're close to senility at this point in our lives. but uh, but it's just been nothing but fun. For me, the band has always kind of represented something special, uh, musically and friendship wise, uh, and to be able to come home to it has meant a lot to me. Uh, and to participate with the guys again and on all these different fronts has really been great, because I think the band has represented something to all of us that's unique apart from anything else we might have done musically in our careers. There's something about this turf that kind of makes us step up to the plate a little more. Like, with my band, for instance, I if I needed an organ player, I'd get somebody who I thought was really great at it, and had a lot of experience as an organ player or a synth player. I didn't really typically do those things myself. I just, kind of sat at the piano and played and sang, and concentrated, more solely on that, whereas with the band, I've had the opportunity to play other instruments that I probably would have never played live. And I think we all have. We all found ourselves wearing different hats than we would wear in any other situation.
Yeah, because we even I don't know if this is one of the ones you're talking about, but like you even get to take out the accordion on this album.
Yeah, I did. And that thrilled me to no end, being able to play accordion on Tom's song, New Orleans.
Mhm.
I practiced diligently for nights before that. Just so
Does
I
that
could
come
come up
natural
with
to you, the
something.
accordion?
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, accordion and organ are two things that historically I've always looked at as, if you didn't start playing these instruments when you were like five, um, you have no business trying now at 70. It's like, but then, never say never. And I've done nothing but enjoy that. It's really brought a kind of an exciting challenge to me in my 70s that I didn't expect to have, at this point in my life.
Yeah. Well, we should play the numbers a little bit here because just to point out, because we've talked about like this is the first time you've been on a Doobie Brothers record officially since 1980. I believe, and it's the first time that you and Tom have been on an album together under the Doobies since 1976. That would have been taking it to the streets.
Right. Right.
And for all the history and everything that happens and whatever, like how now that you're all back, now that it's the three of you again right there, writing these songs, taking the vocals, and you all come from different backgrounds usually when you bring a song in, like how do you what's the journey to making sure that let me ask it a different way. How do you represent your vocals, his vocal, all of your vocals in that vision? Like, how does that work?
Really kind of haphazard ways, which I think is good because, in its haphazardness, if you will, we just kind of throw stuff against the wall and it kind of decides for us what is going to fly and what isn't. Um, not every song we come up with is going to make the record, but in many cases, songs do. And a lot of times it's stuff that, has been languishing, half, demoed in some form or fashion. Uh, Computers are old enough now that I find things every day on my computer that I've totally forgotten that I wrote and kind of threw down quickly. Uh, and there's one or two songs on the album that were of that nature. But what I think I enjoy more than anything is writing songs again now, in this real time. Like Walk This Road was started with John Shanks had kind of the idea for the title and the song, and I just kind of helped him finish that. And uh, I think he had a little different feel on it, but I had been thinking that we one thing we never did. Well, we've done shuffles in the past as the Doobies, but I always thought that was a natural for this band. A blues shuffle was, something along the lines of what the Allman Brothers did, or some of the blues artists in the past. Uh, it's something that the band always did well, but we never recorded that much, uh, uh, and that it would be now would be the time to revisit that whole feeling, and so that song came about, like I said, originally from an idea that John had, and Learn to Let Go was also something John and I sat down and wrote together. So it was that those are kind of like real time things. The other two things were just kind of songs that I had demoed or in the past, and that were in varying forms of being finished. And when I played them for John, he would say, "Well, what about this? What about how about a bridge, or how about this tempo and this feel?" And so we wound up kind of finishing those songs together, and I enjoyed that process too, because I felt like those are songs that might have just languished forever had I not showed them to him, and he helped me finish them.
But just to have those three distinct voices like that, for you all to come from those places and to make it work, like that's what's so incredible about this band. Because you almost think like sometimes that shouldn't work, right? Like, those type of things, but it
Yeah,
does.
well, we do, I mean, and it's funny because I think it's always been kind of a strength of the band, even long before I joined them.
Mhm.
The band was always very diverse in their songbook, and eclectic. Uh, they did everything from like acoustic blues stuff to old Motown songs to hard rock, driving rock guitar driven stuff, to some more piano driven stuff with Billy Payne, and Pat always had that kind of guitarist, more steeped in his background with folk music and kind of everything from slat key, instrumentals. I mean, they did it all really. So when I joined them, it was kind of business as usual. Although a lot of people credit or blame me, whichever you want to, however you want to look at it, with changing the band. I don't think I was as much of a catalyst for change as the band was always ready to do that themselves, and I was just another page in that
Mhm.
book. And when we play live, I think there's many nights I realize that one of the strengths we have live is that you can't, you may not like it all, but you can't get bored listening to the band because we don't do the same thing all night long. Is the live show is every bit as diverse, if not more so, than each of the records have been.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of that, and maybe of all the songs here, and there's a few to choose from, but the kind that lasts, that's one of the ones I really want to hear live.
Oh yeah, yeah. I look forward to playing that one live. Because that's again, that's one of those grooves we've always kind of met, mucked around with. We always love Tommy and I and Pat and John. We have a great love for New Orleans music and food and New Orleans in general. And so we always we love the groups like the Meters and Little Feat and the bands that kind of represented that musical culture so well, and always wanted to try our hand at it. And we would kind of rearrange some of our live stuff into more of a second line feel. I think for a while we were doing "Here to Love You" was we were kind of moving that more into a New Orleans kind of Alan Toussaint-ish kind of rhythm pattern, underpinning, uh, because it worked for the song. It wasn't exactly how we did it live, but this one was kind of written in that genre or in that model, and for that reason, I look forward to playing it live too. And I really look forward to doing New Orleans too, because that I think that song really goes, right to the heart of what the Doobies are all about. It's kind of that swampy rock thing, that we all really enjoy playing, and I kind of look forward to pulling out my old accordion on that one.
It'll be highlights, I swear it. I know I noticed some good names in there too, because Pino's on the kind that lasts, right?
Yes, Pino, Victor on drums, a lot of guys, that worked on it. Well, Mavis was
Mhm.
on Walk This Road, and
We love Mavis.
I love Mavis. I
Yeah.
just saw her in New York. We were did a gig with her in New York, and uh, she's amazing. She's such an inspiration,
Yeah.
and she's kind of like the first lady of uh, you know her aura encompasses so much. She's certainly a gospel artist, uh, but she's every bit as much kind of an American conscious artist. You know, kind of bringing us all to a little bit of enlightenment with her. She's used her gospel music as a real vehicle for social enlightenment. And that's not political. That's just
Right.
like this is who we are, and this is how we should be with each other. And that great reminder that we're not here to take anything away from each other, and that's a fallacy, in one of the things that pins us to the ground, more than anything else. We all want the same things. We all deserve the inalienable rights provided by the Constitution. Uh, you know, we have strength in our unity for it, to that end, and not and we suffer a great weakness when we try to partition ourselves off as to who should be more privileged than who else. For so many years, uh, we've wrestled with that argument politically and socially, and people have used it to divide and conquer us, no less, probably more now than ever. And the fact is, you know, when I hear the term, disenfranchised white people, I have to kind of laugh a little bit. Really, when did that term come to be? Because there's a lot more people with a bigger gripe than the average. The American dream is suffering. It's under the weight of the world economics. It's no one person's fault, and we're all suffering the consequences of a world that we could make better. by uniting and looking after each other, as opposed to separating ourselves from each other and arguing about who deserves more, and it's really time for us to get beyond that, and not leave our future generations with that burden.
Right. That's really evident, especially on side A of this album, of this new album, the way it's stacked. And like, were you all aware, you, Tom, and Pat, that all three of you were sort of circling around similar themes on your songs that you were bringing in?
I don't think we were, but I don't think we ever have been. I think for us, we never approached an album with like this album is going to be about this,
Mm.
or this is, we only approached records like, again, it's kind of a like, let's just express ourselves in the moment and throw all of our ideas against the wall and see what theme kind of rises out of that, or if any. We never really were married to the idea that the albums had to be thematic, or even, in any way have any great moral message. It just really, we always kind of I think wrote our songs around the idea that, well, this is kind of human nature, isn't it? And something that's probably universal to a lot more people than just me. And therefore that's kind of the only criteria it takes for us to make a song out of it. And But with this album, if it became a kind of a message socially, it was totally by accident, or subconscious.
Mhm.
Not really something we developed in our foreconscious before going after it. And I think "Walk This Road" was really more about John Shanks, when he first expressed the idea to me, was going, this seems to fit you guys. Here you are, after all these years, kind of back together in yet another evolution of the band, and it seems like, you're stuck with each other. So maybe we write a song about that. But it became a broader picture the minute we started to write it, and
Mhm.
then by the time we got the track going, and Tom sang a verse, and I sang a verse, Pat sang a verse, we started to realize that, you know. Mavis was a perfect fit, because it in a way kind of reminded me a little bit of an old Staples track,
Mhm.
with that kind of message, like, let's uh, let's raise our heads and look up, and look beyond, the the struggles at our feet, and see the promise of the future. So it just seemed like a perfect fit in that moment, and God knows, she, when she the track really picked up its soul quotient when she started singing on it. The rest of us were just trying to keep up. She killed it. And that, to me, that's what makes her such an inspiration. She when she goes out on stage, it's like she commands that whole,
Mhm.
30, 40 feet of stage. And uh, in a way that it just takes a very special kind of performer to do.
Yeah. Yeah. If you guys want to make her an official doobie at some point, I think the formula works.
Oh
That's
yeah, well, we would do that in a heartbeat, I'm sure. I speak for everybody.
Yeah, there was a quote that you had. It's probably in the press release, and you were saying that you're not a super prolific songwriter. So I would think that maybe coming into a situation like this, where you have these multiple things, would actually benefit you. Like what is your relationship to songwriting in that way? Because you have some, like I talk with some songwriters. I always quote Jacob Dylan on this one. He says, "I start writing an album when it's time to make an album." You
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
people who don't just in their spare time write.
No, we've always been that way too. It's not like I sit around going to work and writing songs every day. But and I think the Doobies for me was the door, to that part of my life that I think otherwise, I might have not really necessarily pursued. When I joined the band, I was at that point, the opportunity that was presented to me by the band made me start thinking about writing again. I became a songwriter by virtue of joining this band. I wrote songs before, and that's what got me to California. So I was a songwriter, but I had kind of let it go. At the point of time that I joined Steely Dan, I was just a musician for hire. I was backing up some lead vocalist who had a record deal, or some other guy singer songwriter who had a record deal. I played sessions once in a while. I played a lot of club gigs. My first really good road gig was in a long time was Steely Dan, and uh, you know, but I wasn't really going to ever write for that band. Donald Walter pretty much were the catalyst and the ground zero for all their music. Um, and I was thrilled to have the gig. They were my favorite band in the world at the time I got that gig, so I would have done it for free. Um, But when I joined the Doobies, the guys were so gracious. Pat, especially, and Ted Templeman, the producer, like, well, what do you got? They heard a demo I had made at Tyran's house, uh, just kind of for fun. He and I had made a demo of a song of mine, and Ted said, "Well, you guys should do that song." The last song in the world I would have ever dreamed the Doobie Brothers would ever record. But I was thrilled, and then it was like, "Well, you got anything else?" And I had, just a couple songs in my arsenal, and played them down for the band, and the band, kind of took hold of them, and they became, forever kind of Doobie Brothers songs, and that door opened to, kind of writing on a more regular basis. But still, we only wrote when we had to. It was like, okay, it's time to do another record, and it was like, oh, geez, we all better come up with something, and I guess that's just our MO, as
Mhm.
songwriters. We were never. I always admired those guys who kind of couldn't stop writing songs.
Mhm.
They were so prolific. I was never that way, and I can write a song for 5 years. And there are some songs that I have been writing for 5 years. And only the next album will ever make me finish them.
Mhm.
So. But thank goodness for that. I mean, who would have thought at our age that we'd even still be doing this? And I know that to all the people we know from the '70s that we worked with back then, Donald, guys in Toto, whenever we're on stage together at this point in our lives, it's not lost on any of us that, who would have thought that we'd
Yeah.
still be doing this?
So glad you are. I really am. And what you all do, again, there's magic in this. And I'll wrap up only on the lighter side by saying, this album gets to be the one that comes out after that HBO doc, which I'm sure brings a whole new fan base in for you guys for the yacht thing. So I don't know did you watch it?
I did. Well, my Christopher Cross's daughter was one of the producers on it,
Yeah.
and and so she was very kind to us. But I think they did a great job of really depicting, in all fairness, what that era was all about. And the the drive to bring musicality to the pop music that we were making. It was I enjoyed every minute of it, making it, being interviewed for it, and watching it, and I'd have to say, as far as the Yacht Rock thing goes, not everybody's thrilled about that. Some of the guys in my band right now aren't thrilled about it. They don't like the moniker because they consider themselves a rock band, a classic
Mhm.
rock band, and they are every bit that. So this is just a kind of a comedic moniker thought up by some guys who had overactive imaginations. But I've always thought it was funny, and I couldn't be prouder of the company I keep in that genre. That now that it's a genre, because if like Yacht Rock is Steely Dan, the Toto, and the Doobie Brothers, and the Eagles, or bands like that, hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
It's not like they're throwing me in with uh, you know the Archies or something. So
And I'll point out and Buffett being in there as well, because you guys are going to be touring with the Coral Reefer band too when you go out there. So
we are.
that's
Yeah.
a good lineup for a tour.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be fun. Well, that band was always great players. Mac McAnally, all the guys in the band. Uh, they've always done a great job live, and I think they've always brought a lot to the show for Jimmy. And he knew how to put a good band together. So it's going to be fun for us to play with those guys, and looking forward to again. At our age, it's all about seeing people you probably wouldn't see again on this earthly plane, but for the fact that we're all still crazy enough to be out there working in our 70s. You know, and I think the beauty of that whole thing is that what's a crisis today, like leaving your hearing aids on the bus, or things like that, are trying to remember the actors in a movie that, and then realizing that we don't even remember what we're talking about at this point, you know, uh, is offset by the fact that once we get up there on stage, we're all like kind of like 19, 20 years old again,
Mhm.
something magical happens, and all the aches and the pains and the forgetfulness and all, it all kind of disappears, and we all kind of fall into the moment the same way we did when we were in our 20s.
Well, I'm excited to see you guys out on the road, especially playing these songs in this new album. Michael, it's so great to see you and talk to you again. Congrats on Walk This Road,
Thank
and
you.
thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Kyle.
And thanks to my guest. Also, thanks to you for checking out the episode in the series. Before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button. Again, you get 3 brand new interviews every single week. New one every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at right here on YouTube, or of course anywhere in podcast land, including iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, NPR, or WFPK.org as well. A great way to keep up with your favorite artists and discover new ones as well. Then after that, actually head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can also find me on the social media spots, Facebook, Instagram, mostly on Twitter. All 3 of them, the address is at Kyle Meredith. Do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.